Welcome to the weekly message from Unity North Tampa, presented here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today's message is The 12 Powers in You, Understanding and Will, and was recorded on Sunday, February 5th, 2023.
Say with me, if you will, the Spirit of God is upon me. In other words, there is no separation between you and the divine. There is no separation. That wherever you are, God is. It doesn't matter if you're riding in your car, listening to, does anybody listen to the radio anymore? Surfing the web or on your phone, wherever you are, God is. Wherever you are, God is. So we never have to wonder if we're alone. We are never, ever alone. And I know in life it's hard, right? Our journey is up and down. When we lose people that mean so much to us, a spouse, a friend. I just had a former member of my last church pass away very unexpectedly, and I had to deal with that. I was mad at God for a few minutes. Those of you in our grief group know exactly what I'm talking about. Grief is a process. Yeah, so at times we can feel alone. What I want you to know is, though, you are not alone, even if it feels like it. Would you just say with me, I am never alone? Together, I am never alone. Now, if you're new to Unity or new to this ministry, you're going to find every now and then I say this with me. All right? Say, Say, she says, say this with me. Yes, she makes us participate. That's because your words are creative. Our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, I thought it was so appropriate that we heard again that Myrtle Fillmore's amazing healing happened as a result of her hearing a new idea, a new thought, and then putting that into practice. Saying over and over and over and over, I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. That was the statement. Right? And just last week, we had one of our very own members, Greg Yarmish, do a great job on the powers of power and imagination. We called that power even dominion. And so there is power in the spoken word. If you've studied the chakras or any of the Eastern religions, you know this right here is a place of power. The affirmation for this place, if you study the chakras, is I have the right to speak the truth. It's the same as what Unity is teaching. This is my power center for speaking truth. So my thoughts are formative, yes. My prayers and words are creative. So I will say to you, please say this with me. We want to wake ourselves up and go, oh yeah, that's right. I am a child of God. Therefore, I do not inherit sickness. Years ago, I went to a doctor and I was told I had anemia. Are you guys familiar with anemia? And there's all different kinds, and I had some weird kind, something I'd never heard of. I said, leave it to me to have something I've never even heard of. Well, then several months, it was about 9 months later, I went back to the doctor, and I said, well, what about my anemia? They said, you don't have any anemia. I don't know who told you that, but you don't have anemia. I said, no, I have the test. No. I said, no, it's not here. And so I said to my friend who was a Unity minister, I was not yet a minister at that time, I was in school. I said, well, can that be that? She said, honey, you've been doing so much prayer work, your cells just kind of went the other way. She said, you've just convinced your body that you're one with God. I said, oh. And then I said, well, I am meditating a half hour in the morning, a half hour at night. I am going to school at Unity Village from 7:30 in the morning till noon. And then I go pray at lunch, and then I get in my car and go work at Unity in Overland Park, where all day I'm doing spiritual things, and then I come home and have a wonderful dinner and then do my half-hour meditation at night. No wonder. My whole life was just drenched in spirit. So this sounds fantastical. Maybe you might say, well, listen, I'm a lawyer. I don't do that all day. Or listen, I cut hair for a living. Or I'm retired. All I'm saying is start somewhere in your spiritual practice. Because every little bit you do, every time you can remember, I am a child of God, or I am never alone, or God is with me, and all is well, that's going to bring you more into your wholeness. Right? That's going to bring you more into your wholeness. And start watching, what are these words I'm saying And I know I'm focusing a little bit on last week, but I wanted to bring that in because it's so important for this week's lesson. That last week, was all about power. And Greg shared so beautifully about how he hadn't used his power in the most holy of ways, but was understanding now to speak truth and to speak the truth in love and to speak divine words is how we're supposed to use that power. And that we can imagine what's possible for us. Can you imagine if just every single person in this room, just us, nobody else, just us in this room really started living as if we believed these truths? What on earth would happen? What on earth would happen? So that was last week. Now today, let's look at the 12 powers. I always like to give you the list. This week is understanding and will, two very important powers. Now, the reason every week I put these up, I want to remind you that all of these are 12 powers that were known so fully in Jesus. And each one, the Fillmores had the idea to put a disciple with each of these 12 powers. I think that was a really cool idea. Because each of the disciples had a little bit of this power, but it was known fully in Jesus, right? So the idea as we learn about them is that we can begin to think about, imagine, and speak those words to bring those powers into manifestation. Because the power is already yours. Did you hear that? I'm going to say it one more time. The power is already yours. So I want you to stay with me. The power is already mine. Together? The power is already mine. Sometimes you have to get a little attitude on the end. Mine. Have you ever seen a teenager? Mine. Or 2-year-old or teenager. Same diff. The power is already mine. Like, own that. Mom, right? The power is already mine. Let's hear you one more time. The power is already mine. The power is already mine. The power is already mine. So what are the powers today? Understanding and will. So what is understanding? What is understanding? Well, it really means from a knowledge standpoint. I was talking with somebody yesterday, and she said, well, isn't it to comprehend? I said, well, it is, but there's something deeper. To comprehend is to know the facts, isn't it? Understanding is knowing how those facts fit all together to create a grand picture. That's true understanding. I don't know, do any of you like to do jigsaw puzzles? Anybody old enough to remember what it means to do a puzzle? Okay. Not on your phone where you poke a thing. I mean like an actual puzzle. You remember those? And when you poured them all out, it was just a big mess, wasn't it? Well, that's what it is to know facts. And our world right now has all the facts we've ever wanted. Hey, Siri, show me what, right? What is the definition of understanding? According to Wikipedia is this. According to what Webster is this. But we're no smarter. Isn't that amazing? That's because we do not have the spiritual understanding. In other words, the right way of seeing and comprehending how to put it all together. Now, we should have a point on this up there. So how are we putting this all together? How are we having spiritual understanding to put all of this material together? In other words, it's more than facts. It's a divine awareness. It's a divine awareness to have spiritual understanding. And it lives kind of right here. The Fillmores tell us it lives up here in the frontal lobe. Well, I don't know a lot about the brain, but what I know is that in the Far East, in the oldest religions of the world, they talk about something called the third eye. Have you ever heard of that? It's often called the place of illumination. If you've ever seen anybody from India, a woman, what do they have right here? Yeah, that's to mark that special place, that third eye, right? The affirmation for that chakra is, I have the right to see through illusion. That's understanding. That's understanding. I was working with a friend who's an architect, and he does incredible work, and he's amazing on his spiritual journey. And we were in a meeting one time together, and we had been working something out as a group, and he got the color for this area up here, we were passing around this fabric and they were just picking it out. And I said, oh, I know why you got that one. He said, why? I said, well, you're an architect, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, so you see through illusion. You have divine understanding. You can walk into a place that's a wreck and see the possibility. And he goes, yeah. I said, well, what if you started calling on this spiritual power every day in your work? Can you imagine? You're already amazing. Calling forth this divine energy. So what we're seeking to do here is put together this divine energy in every aspect of our life and world. That divine understanding is already mine. Say that with me. Divine understanding is already mine. And say to the person next to you, and you got it too. Yeah, there you go. Good. Divine understanding is already mine. In other words, so if there's something troubling you right now, if there's a little struggle, and I'm not going to say anybody have a struggle because we both go, no, everything's fine. Yeah, right. We're in unity. It's all is good. We're just part of the isness of the allness of the oneness, right? No, all is well. All is well. It's all good. We like to say, well, sometimes we need to call forth that divine understanding. And so sometimes just claiming that you have it, that's why I was saying about the spoken word, divine understanding is mine now. I need it right now, God. Divine understanding is mine now. Divine understanding is mine now. And then sometimes even putting your hand like in that power center and just imagine like the light of God illuminating here. Because this is, in fact, a power center. The oldest religions in the world, and now here we are in the 21st century still saying this is a power center. There must be something to it, even if we don't understand it. And if you grew up in church, like I did, a Methodist or Baptist, nobody ever talked about things like that. What was the purpose? Well, to keep you guilty. That way you'd keep coming back. Not empowered. We're trying to give you spiritual tools so that you're empowered to change your life for the better any day of the week. You don't have to wait till Sunday. Right? The same thing Jesus was doing back in the day. People thought they had to go into the temple to get help. And Jesus said, oh, no, God's right here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to call him Abba, which means daddy. I don't need any separation. God is right here. In Judaism, you couldn't get any more special. So that's the understanding. Yes, it's to comprehend, but it's taking the facts and understanding how it all fits together. Right? So if you're in a struggle, call on that divine understanding. It's already yours. That's number 2. 3 is will. This power of will. So I don't know if any of you have ever studied she's a real esoteric teacher named Alice Bailey from like the late 1800s. Anybody ever heard of her? Yeah, you've been in metaphysics a long time. She talks about, now I'm going way out there. Please stay with me. Okay, going way out there. So Alice Bailey had a teaching that you were born on a certain ray of energy. It's a very interesting teaching. It's a little known. But I was born on the will ray. I have that ability to move things forward. I know, as a matter of fact, I'm going to have somebody come teach on that. I've already talked to them. There's a couple people here that often are here, and they were born on the love ray. They've always got love for everybody. You know people like that? So I found that knowing what ray you're born on, that sounds like, woo, that's out there. Was that too far out? Is that whatever? It's helpful in knowing what your tendencies are. So with me and my ability to will make things happen, I don't want to bulldoze over somebody. So I got to pull back the will sometimes and have right use of will, meaning through the divine energy. It's up here too, right? That's up in the forehead too. So we're thinking about how do we spiritually use these powers? And that power of will is to make things happen, isn't it? That power of will moves things forward. You can have an idea, but without will, it's never going to go anywhere. You've got to have that vitality, which is also zeal. We'll get to that one in a couple of weeks. But will is making sure you're going to will it to happen. The scriptures say, thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established for you. That decree, that has that will and that word spoken. So you see how all the 12 powers are always working together, but they need to be activated, right? Say with me, the power of will is already mine. Together? The power of will is already mine. The power of will is already mine. So it's like if there's something you're having a hard time getting going on, start. Call on the power of will. Just start. A lot of times, my working up to something is way longer than actually doing it. Have you noticed that? Can I have an amen on that? So there's a little area of my home, and it's I bought an old 50s bungalow. You know what that means? That means it's a fixer and it needs work all the time. Not all the time, thank you God, but there's projects. When you look around, there's projects. And so I had in my garage this tiny little bathroom. And it seemed like a good idea when I moved in that maybe I ought to do something with that. I thought about it and I thought about it and I prayed on it and I wrote it down that I was going to do something. I could never find somebody to do it. And then I had the guy to do it. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write this date. I'm going to get it done by. And I'm going to start looking around for how I could put in maybe one of those sliding barn doors. You know how those are kind of cool. And I know I'm terrible at ordering over the internet. So I finally asked somebody, can you help me order the right thing? I will absolutely click on the wrong color or the wrong something. Just please, give me anybody in crisis and I'm good to go, but don't ask me to order over the internet. I am terrible at it. I will order an extra large instead of a medium. I can't say why. It's hard for me. I just leave that to somebody else. So I finally said, I'm going to get this done, even though I don't know exactly how. I am decent with my hands, but maybe I'll get a friend to help. So I started imagining what was I going to put in that spot. And then I finally had somebody help me order the hardware. And I got the hardware for the sliding door, but I still had no door. I said, well, Spirit, I want to get this done no matter what. And I'm ready to move forward. And I was in Tarpon Springs. You know, there's this place there. It's called Tampa Bay Salvage. It's a really cool place. I mean, they have crazy cool stuff. And I found a door for $95 only. The one on the internet was $1,000, by the way. So, and I said, well, that's kind of a fixer-upper, but I tend to like things that are fixer-upper. So I'm going to and I thought about that after I got the door, I thought about sanding it for about 2 months. Can I have an amen? Now I'm working up to something, I promise you. Now, for some reason, a couple weeks ago, I was not feeling well. I couldn't figure out. I didn't have the energy, you know. I wasn't worried about the kids don't call it COVID. What do they call it sometimes? The Rona. I wasn't worried about COVID, but I just was like, I had no energy. And I prayed about it, and I said, Spirit, what am I? Am I just supposed to rest? Am I supposed to binge on Netflix? And Spirit said, get up and do that door. I felt awful. I didn't have any sawhorses. Well, the city had been by, and for some reason, you know, left those barricades out that have those lights on them that flash. I said, you know, maybe I could use those as sawhorses. But I'm telling you, with a little bit of will, not only did I use those as sawhorses, I sanded the whole door, and then I restored it. And now I have it. If anybody wants to see a picture, I'll be proudly showing you that picture today. Oh, yeah. I've already called the plumber now to help fix the other part. And now the tile guy's coming too. It's going to happen. But without will, it was only a thought. And I mean, nothing got done without will. Nothing. It was a lot of thinking. I said, my gosh, I could have done 25 doors by now. How long I thought about this. And what was so funny is I loved every second of just doing that on my own. And I just hand sanded it, even though I have I have a belt sander and I have one of those. I love stuff like that. I grew up with my dad building things, you know. But something about just I had all these different grits of sandpaper. I felt like a real professional, you know, out there. And all of a sudden, man, I just got into that. And it was just like, it was the flow, it was the energy. And I'm so proud of that little door. And I found a handle and I got these brass screws. So it looked just so, you know, had my friend come help me hang it. It is hung. I did have to have help along the way, but without will, it never would have happened. Yeah. So that somehow had to get reactivated around that project. It just felt like a heavy lift. You have things you're supposed to do, and it feels like a heavy lift. So we have to access our will. That's why we access it, so that we can move it forward. Will is a very strong energy. It's very closely aligned with strength, but without the will, you won't ever have the strength. You've got to have that intention to move it forward. There's several intentions we have around our church and our campus. Like several of our members and I have been talking about could we possibly pay off our mortgage soon? Let's move this forward. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But it's like we have to first have the idea, but then the will has to be there to move it forward. So be asking yourself, and I'm sure you are as I'm saying all this. I know you don't care about my door and my barn door and that. Well, I know you don't even care about that. But hopefully you're applying it to something you need to do, that you need to move forward. And usually it's something for your betterment, right? So then as we move it forward, what happens is we get to feel better about life and ourselves. I felt capable when I did it. It reminded me of the time with my dad. Beautiful. But what it was for a while is just an idea.
Thank you for listening to the weekly message from Unity North Tampa here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com. This message is copyright 2023, Unity North Tampa, all rights reserved. Our theme music, The Light of God, is composed by Shannon Croft and used with permission and available at shannoncroft.com. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.